Good morning. This lesson is for my Trig-Precalc class, but before I get started, I want to say I hope that everyone is doing all right out there. I don't know what the title of this lesson is. Yes, I do actually. It's Chapter 6, Lesson 6. I had to write it in your week at a glance, so I know what I'm talking about today. And I also know what our two goals are today. Well, email. Our first goal is going to be to rewrite the law of cosines so we can find an angle measure. Our second goal is going to be to find an angle measure using the law of cosines. So let's review where we're at so far. So when our triangle has an angle side, or when our triangle has an angle side angle, or angle side pattern, we use the law of sines to solve the triangle. If our triangle has a side angle side pattern, we use the law of cosines to find the third side, which gets us to the angle side pattern, and we solve the triangle using the law of sines. Today we're dealing with the side pattern, and we need to rewrite the law of cosines so we can find an angle measure. So we get to the angle side pattern and use the law of sines to solve the triangle. Well, this is our law of cosines. We have to rewrite this in such a way we're going to be able to find an angle measure. So if you want to hit pause and see if you can figure out how I'm going to rewrite it, try that. That would be a good thing to do. And hopefully you try that. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully you hit pause. I'm back. My mind is going all over. I'm trying to think and nothing's happening today. It's one of those days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase the board, come back, show you how we can turn this this equation that we use to find the third side into the equation that we're going to use to find the missing angle. There's a clue. We want to still try it. All right, so let me go ahead and erase all this and clean it up, and I'll be back. I'm back, so let's go ahead and continue with our first goal here. And remember, we need to change the way this formula is written so that we can use it to find the measure of an angle. So to use the law of cosines with the side pattern, we need to solve for cosine of A. This is who we need to isolate. Right? This will allow us to find the measure of angle A when we plug in the side lengths and evaluate with our calculating machine. All right, so I need to solve for this. So the very first thing I need to do is I need to get rid of the square root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square both sides. You get squared and you get squared. And remember, squares cancel out square roots, or square roots cancel out squares. And so now we're left with a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of angle A. All right, so I'm going to, let's see here. Let's subtract the b squared and the c squared to the other side. So minus b squared to both sides, minus c squared to both sides. Okay, and we're going to cancel u out on this side, and we now have a squared minus b squared minus c squared is equal to negative 2 times b times c times the cosine of angle A. And if we divide away the negative 2bc to both sides, it cancels on the right side, and I'm left with cosine of angle A equals to a squared minus b squared minus c squared divided by minus 2bc. Now, we don't like to leave negatives in the denominator, so what we can actually do is we can multiply the numerator and the denominator by negative 1 over negative 1, which is technically 1. All right? And so what that's going to do is we're going to be left now with the following formula. Let me get a better marker here. I got the marker crazy. All right, here we go. All right, so we get cosine of angle A is equal to negative a squared plus b squared plus c squared divided by the 2 times the length of b times c. These are the, this is what we plug into when we know the three side lengths to find an angle measure. All right, so a couple observations. One, whatever side length you make negative, you're finding the opposite angle. All right, so let's write that down. Okay, so whatever side length you make A equal, you are finding its opposite angle. Once we find an angle, we get into the angle side-side pattern, and we can then solve the triangle in that fashion. So once we find the angle, all right, so once we have an angle measure, we can use the law of sines to finish solving the triangle. Email. All right, so I'm going to come back. Let me check off this goal. I'm going to come back and we'll do a couple examples, or I'll do a couple examples. I'm talking to myself, no one else. I'll do a couple examples and show you how to find an angle measure using the law of cosines and what certain values mean about the angle that you're finding. So let me go ahead and clean all of this off, and I'll be back. I'm back for the last time, I promise. This is actually kind of a short lesson, which is nice for a change, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our second goal, and it's finding an angle measure using the law of cosines. We're going to label the triangle using A, B, and C for the angles, capital A, B, and C, and lowercase a, b, and c for the side lengths. What length you call A, you are finding the opposite angle measure. Okay, so whatever we call A, for the length, we're finding its opposite angle measure. Again, here's our formula that we're going to be using. Negative a squared plus b squared plus c squared divided by 2bc. Now you have to be very careful how you plug it into the calculator. You need to put parentheses around the numerator and parentheses around the denominator. And this negative in front of the a, do not use the subtraction symbol. There's another minus sign on your calculator that's not next to plus, divide, or multiply. Use that to tell the calculator that you want the negative value of a squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this problem, find an angle measure, and set it up so you can then solve using the law of sines. I'm looking for a marker, and there's a marker right here. I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'm going to label in this form. There's A, there's B, there's C, which makes this side length A, this side length B, and this side length C. So this is the angle measure we're going to find. Okay, we're going to find that angle measure. So let me go ahead and find my calculating machine that I hid for myself. All right. So let me show you how it's going to look when we plug it into the calculator. So it's going to be parentheses minus 26 squared plus 18 squared plus 24 squared. And we're going to divide that by, we're going to divide that by 2 times 18 times 24. Okay, so you have to put the parentheses, and remember, not a subtraction, but a negative sign. Not a subtraction, but a negative sign. I'll repeat it enough. We'll get it right. All right, so since I have a calculator, I'm going to go second cosine, parentheses, negative 26 squared plus 18 squared plus 24 squared, close that parentheses, divide that by 2 times 18. Oh, I made a mistake. Divide that by parentheses 2 times 18 times 24. Close that parentheses. I forgot the parentheses. And then close the other parentheses. Boom. All right, here we go. And my angle measure is 74.97 degrees, which roughly rounds to 75 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 75 degrees. And now we can use the law of sines to find the other angle measures. So, or find one more, because once you know one, you can use the two to find the third. So hopefully this makes sense to you. It's not very difficult to use. Let me write down our next step, though. I feel like I am rushing a little bit. So now we know the measure of angle A equals 75 degrees. You know, you could even just relabel this and do this again, or we could use the law of sines. So we're going to use the law of sines to find one more angle measure. That's a terrible E. One more angle measure. That was not much better. Once we know two, we can use those to find the third. So I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. Again, I hope everyone is doing all right out there. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.